Deep in the Colorado Plateau, carved into the rock of a massive cliff face, stands a stone city that defies every conventional timeline of American history. 150 rooms of precisely cut sandstone, 23 ceremonial chambers, and multi-story towers all suspended 90 feet above the canyon floor, like some ancient fantasy brought to life. The official story tells us that the Cliff Palace was built by the ancestral Puebloan people around 1190 CE. But here's where things get interesting. The level of architectural sophistication displayed here suggests knowledge and techniques that take centuries to develop. Yet according to mainstream archaeology, these people went from basic pit houses to this masterpiece of engineering in just a few generations. The precision is what gets you first. These aren't roughly stacked rocks held together with mud. Every sandstone block was shaped with mathematical accuracy. The mortar joints are perfectly uniform. The structural engineering required to build multi-story buildings on a narrow cliff ledge using only stone tools represents a level of technical knowledge that challenges our assumptions about prehistoric capabilities. But the real mystery lies in the details that nobody talks about. The construction techniques used here mirror building methods found in ancient Mediterranean civilizations. The use of core and veneer masonry, the sophisticated understanding of load distribution, the integration of natural rock formations into the structural design. These aren't techniques you stumble upon through trial and error. They represent accumulated knowledge passed down through generations of master builders. The astronomical alignments are equally puzzling. Certain structures are positioned to capture specific solar events with precision that would make modern architects envious. The summer solstice sunrise illuminates particular rooms in sequence. The winter solstice sunset creates shadow patterns that mark ceremonial spaces. This isn't accidental. This is evidence of advanced astronomical knowledge being incorporated into permanent architecture. What's even more remarkable is the urban planning. This wasn't a village that grew organically over time. The entire complex shows evidence of centralized planning and design. The relationship between residential areas, ceremonial spaces, and storage facilities follows sophisticated principles of civic architecture. The integration of water management systems, defensive features, and social hierarchies into a single cohesive design speaks to a level of organizational complexity that supposedly didn't exist in prehistoric America. Now let's travel east to the Mississippi River Valley, where we encounter something that will completely rewrite your understanding of ancient American engineering capabilities. Rising from the fertile floodplains of Illinois stands what can only be described as an American pyramid. Monk's Mound at Cahokia covers more ground than the Great Pyramid of Egypt, and represents one of the largest earthen constructions ever undertaken by human hands. But here's what makes your head spin. This massive monument was completed around 1100 CE, making it contemporary with the construction of European cathedrals. Yet mainstream history barely acknowledges its existence. The numbers alone are staggering. 22 million cubic feet of earth moved using nothing but baskets and human labor. A base covering 14 acres, a height of 100 feet with 4 distinct terraces rising to a flattened summit where a massive ceremonial structure once stood. To put this in perspective, the amount of earth moved here exceeds the volume of many famous pyramids, yet it was accomplished by a civilization that supposedly had no writing system, no wheeled vehicles, and no domesticated beasts of burden. The organizational requirements for such a project boggle the mind. Modern calculations suggest this would have required the coordinated labor of thousands of people working for decades, not just manual labor, but skilled engineers capable of soil analysis, drainage management, and structural design. The mound shows evidence of sophisticated construction techniques, including layered fill materials, internal drainage systems, and retaining walls designed to prevent structural failure. But Monk's Mound was just the centerpiece of something much larger. The entire Cahokia complex once contained over 120 earthen mounds, arranged in precise geometric patterns across 6 square miles. This wasn't a village. This was a planned city with a population that may have reached 20,000 people, making it larger than London at the same time period. The site reveals evidence of continent-wide trade networks that would make modern corporations envious. Copper from the Great Lakes, shells from the Gulf Coast, obsidian from the Rocky Mountains, mica from the Appalachians. These weren't occasional trade goods. They were flowing through Cahokia in quantities that suggest industrial-scale commercial operations centuries before Europeans established their first trading posts. The precision of the astronomical alignments at Cahokia rivals anything found in the Old World. A timber circle called Woodhenge tracked solar and lunar cycles with mathematical accuracy. The positioning of major mounds creates sightlines to significant celestial events. This integration of monumental architecture with astronomical observation represents a level of scientific sophistication that challenges every assumption about prehistoric American capabilities. Moving southwest into New Mexico, we encounter perhaps the most enigmatic of all ancient American constructions. In the remote high desert of Chaco Canyon stands Pueblo Bonito, a massive D-shaped structure that was the largest building in North America for over 6 centuries. But calling it a building doesn't do it justice. This was a cosmic machine built of stone, an architectural computer designed to track the movements of celestial bodies with precision that wouldn't be matched until the development of modern astronomy. The scale is breathtaking. Over 650 rooms spread across 3 acres, rising 4 stories high in places, with walls aligned to cardinal directions within a single degree of true north. The construction required importing over 200,000 wooden beams from forests 50 miles away through roadless wilderness. The masonry work displays techniques that wouldn't be seen again until the Renaissance. But here's where it gets really interesting. Recent analysis has revealed that Pueblo Bonito wasn't just aligned to solar events. The entire structure appears to be designed as a 3-dimensional calendar capable of tracking multiple astronomical cycles simultaneously. Windows and doorways are positioned to allow specific shafts of light to illuminate particular rooms during solstices and equinoxes. Internal walls create shadow patterns that mark seasonal transitions with mathematical precision. The implications are staggering. This level of astronomical sophistication requires not just observation, but mathematical modeling of celestial mechanics. The builders of Pueblo Bonito possessed knowledge of lunar cycles, stellar movements, and planetary motions that wouldn't be formally codified by European science for centuries. They embedded this knowledge in permanent architecture, creating a stone computer that could perform complex astronomical calculations for generations. The construction timeline raises equally puzzling questions. Tree ring dating shows that the main building phase occurred between 1080 and 1130 CE, an incredibly brief period for such a massive undertaking. The precision and coordination required suggest an existing tradition of monumental architecture and a sophisticated understanding of project management that challenges our assumptions about prehistoric organizational capabilities. What we're seeing at these sites isn't primitive architecture gradually evolving toward complexity. We're seeing fully developed technologies appearing seemingly out of nowhere, displaying levels of sophistication that required centuries of accumulated knowledge to achieve. The mathematical precision, astronomical alignments, and engineering solutions represent intellectual achievements that force us to reconsider everything we think we know about the intellectual capabilities of prehistoric American civilizations. These aren't isolated examples. Across the American landscape, from the cliff dwellings of Arizona to the earthworks of Louisiana, we find evidence of advanced engineering, sophisticated astronomy, and complex social organization dating back thousands of years. Each site reveals capabilities that weren't supposed to exist according to conventional historical timelines. The pattern is consistent and undeniable. Advanced knowledge, sophisticated techniques, and monumental construction appearing throughout prehistoric America at scales that rival the greatest achievements of the ancient world. The question isn't whether these civilizations possessed advanced capabilities. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is why this evidence has been systematically minimized, explained away, or ignored by mainstream archaeology. What we're about to explore in the remaining sites will push these boundaries even further, revealing prehistoric American achievements that challenge not just our understanding of ancient capabilities, but our fundamental assumptions about the development of human civilization itself. The stone towers of Hovenweep rise from the canyon rims like ancient skyscrapers, their impossible silhouettes defying everything we think we know about prehistoric American architecture. Standing on the Utah-Colorado border, these mysterious structures present a puzzle that mainstream archaeology has never satisfactorily explained. How did people supposedly using only stone tools create multi-story buildings that required engineering knowledge comparable to medieval European castle construction? The square tower itself stands as the crown jewel of this enigmatic complex. 3 stories of precisely fitted masonry perched atop a massive boulder, its narrow windows and doorways positioned with mathematical precision to frame specific views of the horizon. The structural engineering required to build such a tower on an unstable foundation represents a level of technical sophistication that challenges every assumption about 13th century American capabilities. But here's what really makes your brain hurt. These towers weren't built randomly across the landscape. They form part of an integrated defensive and astronomical observation network that spans multiple canyon systems. Each tower is positioned to maintain visual contact with others, creating a communication system that could relay signals across vast distances. The mathematical precision of these sightlines suggests knowledge of surveying techniques that wouldn't be formally developed in Europe for centuries. The construction methods reveal even deeper mysteries. Analysis of the masonry shows these builders possessed advanced understanding of structural engineering principles. Load-bearing walls, foundation techniques, and the integration of natural rock formations into structural designs all demonstrate knowledge that typically requires generations of accumulated building experience. Yet according to mainstream timelines, these people had no previous tradition of multi-story construction. The astronomical alignments push this into truly puzzling territory. Specific windows in these towers frame sunrise and sunset positions during solstices and equinoxes. Internal chambers are designed to capture precise shafts of light that illuminate particular features during significant celestial events. This integration of architecture with astronomical observation represents a marriage of practical engineering and scientific knowledge that supposedly didn't exist in prehistoric America. Moving eastward across the continent, we encounter an achievement that completely redefines our understanding of ancient American engineering capabilities. Hidden in the river valleys of Louisiana lies Poverty Point, a construction so ancient and sophisticated it predates the rise of Rome by over 1,000 years. When you first see the aerial photographs of this site, your mind struggles to process what you're looking at. 6 massive earthen ridges arranged in a perfect semicircle, each one 3/4 of a mile long, enclosing a central plaza larger than 35 football fields. This isn't natural topography. This is deliberate landscape architecture on a scale that wouldn't be attempted again in North America for another 2,000 years. The mathematical precision of the design is staggering. Perfect concentric arcs with geometrically calculated spacing between ridges, all oriented to cardinal directions with surveying accuracy that rivals modern engineering. The construction timeline makes this even more remarkable. Carbon dating places the main building phase around 1700 to 1100 BCE, making this contemporary with the height of ancient Egyptian civilization. Yet mainstream American archaeology treats this as a curiosity rather than evidence of advanced prehistoric capabilities. The organizational requirements for such a project boggle the mind. Moving millions of cubic feet of earth using only baskets and human labor required coordination of thousands of workers over extended periods. But the real mystery lies in the sophistication of the overall design. This wasn't just earth moving for the sake of monumentality. The ridge system appears designed to function as an enormous amphitheatre with acoustic properties that would amplify sound across the entire complex. The geometric precision suggests knowledge of advanced mathematics, including calculations involving pi and geometric progressions, that wouldn't be formalized for centuries. The associated earthwork called Mound A pushes this into truly mind-bending territory. This massive pyramid contains 8 million cubic feet of earth, making it one of the largest earthen constructions in North America. Soil analysis reveals that different types of earth were selected for specific structural purposes, indicating sophisticated understanding of engineering properties of various soil types. The mound was apparently constructed in a remarkably short period, suggesting organizational capabilities that rival modern construction projects. The artifact assemblages from Poverty Point reveal trade networks spanning the entire continent. Stone tools made from materials originating hundreds of miles away, worked copper from the Great Lakes region, exotic minerals from distant sources. This wasn't occasional long-distance trade. This was systematic commercial networking on an industrial scale, coordinated through a central hub that controlled resource flows across vast distances. In the desert southwest, we encounter structures that push the boundaries of what should have been possible using prehistoric technology. Montezuma Castle in Arizona presents us with a 5-story apartment complex built into a sheer cliff face 90 feet above the valley floor. The precision of the construction and the engineering challenges overcome represent achievements that demand serious reconsideration of prehistoric American capabilities. The structural engineering alone should have been impossible. Building multi-story masonry construction in a natural alcove requires sophisticated understanding of load distribution, foundation techniques, and material properties. The builders had to solve complex problems of water management, ventilation, and structural stability while working in an environment where a single mistake could result in catastrophic collapse. The construction logistics present equally puzzling challenges. Every stone, every timber, every basket of mortar had to be carried up nearly vertical cliff faces using only rope and human strength. The precision of the masonry work suggests skilled craftsmen working under controlled conditions, not desperate people throwing together emergency shelter. The integration of natural rock formations into the structural design shows advanced architectural planning that considered both engineering requirements and aesthetic considerations. The defensive capabilities reveal military engineering knowledge that challenges our assumptions about prehistoric warfare. The structure could only be accessed by removable ladders, turning each level into a separate defensive position. The positioning of windows and doorways creates overlapping fields of observation that would allow defenders to monitor approaches from multiple directions. This level of military architectural sophistication suggests organized warfare conducted according to established strategic principles. But perhaps most puzzling is the abandonment pattern. These structures weren't destroyed by conquest or catastrophe. They were systematically emptied and sealed by their inhabitants, who apparently relocated in an organized fashion. This suggests social and political organization capable of coordinating large-scale population movements, preserving valuable goods, and maintaining cultural continuity across geographical transitions. The timeline of these achievements creates a pattern that should force us to reconsider everything we think we know about prehistoric American development. Advanced construction techniques, sophisticated astronomical knowledge, continent-spanning trade networks, and complex social organization, all appearing throughout the archaeological record at periods when such capabilities weren't supposed to exist. What we're seeing isn't gradual cultural evolution toward complexity. We're seeing fully developed technologies and social systems operating at levels of sophistication that required centuries of accumulated knowledge to achieve. The mathematical precision, engineering solutions, and organizational capabilities represented at these sites rival achievements of acknowledged ancient civilizations. yet they've been systematically marginalized by mainstream archaeological interpretation. The implications extend far beyond simple historical curiosity. These sites represent evidence of intellectual and technological achievements that fundamentally challenge our understanding of human development in the Americas. They suggest the existence of sophisticated educational systems capable of preserving and transmitting complex knowledge across generations. They indicate social structures advanced enough to coordinate massive construction projects while maintaining continent-wide trade networks. Most importantly, they demonstrate that the intellectual capabilities of prehistoric American civilizations were far more advanced than conventional timelines acknowledge. The knowledge required to achieve these feats didn't appear overnight. It represents accumulated wisdom developed over extended periods by cultures that possessed educational institutions, scientific traditions, and technological capabilities that have been systematically overlooked by mainstream archaeology. As we prepare to examine our final sites, the pattern becomes undeniable. Each location reveals capabilities that push against the boundaries of what should have been possible according to conventional historical frameworks. The evidence demands that we reconsider not just the timeline of American development, but our fundamental assumptions about the intellectual achievements of prehistoric civilizations. Moving into the cliff faces of northern New Mexico, we encounter architectural achievements that defy every conventional understanding of prehistoric construction capabilities. At Bandelier National Monument, ancient builders created vertical cities that cling to canyon walls, like some impossible fusion of natural cave formation and sophisticated urban planning. But these aren't crude shelters carved into convenient rock formations. These are engineered communities that required advanced understanding of geology, structural mechanics, and three-dimensional architectural design. The scale of modification is breathtaking. Entire cliff faces were systematically carved and shaped to create multi-story apartment complexes that housed hundreds of families. The builders didn't just enlarge natural caves. They created artificial caverns with precisely calculated dimensions, integrated drainage systems, and structural reinforcements that have survived centuries of weathering. The level of geological knowledge required to identify suitable rock formations and modify them without causing structural collapse represents expertise that supposedly didn't exist in prehistoric America. Longhouse stretches for nearly a mile along the base of towering volcanic cliffs. Its hundreds of carved rooms connected by an intricate network of hand-carved stairways, ladders, and balconies. The engineering challenges overcome here should have been insurmountable using stone tools and human labor. Creating stable multi-story structures in soft volcanic rock requires understanding of material properties, load distribution, and construction sequencing that typically takes generations to develop. But the real mystery lies in the precision of the astronomical alignments integrated throughout these cliff cities. Specific rooms were positioned to capture sunlight during particular celestial events, creating a three-dimensional calendar system embedded in living rock. The mathematical calculations required to achieve these alignments while working within the constraints of natural cliff formations represents a marriage of advanced astronomy and practical engineering that challenges every assumption about prehistoric American capabilities. The construction timeline creates additional puzzles that mainstream archaeology struggles to explain. Tree ring dating and ceramic analysis suggest these elaborate cliff modifications were completed in remarkably short periods, sometimes within single generations. The coordination required to organize such massive construction projects while maintaining the precise astronomical alignments suggests organizational capabilities and technical knowledge that developed far more rapidly than conventional cultural evolution models would predict. Alcove House, perched 140 feet up a sheer cliff face, pushes these achievements into truly mind-bending territory. Reaching this ancient dwelling requires ascending 4 wooden ladders and a series of carved stone steps that would challenge modern rock climbers. Yet families lived here for generations, hauling water, food, and children up these precarious routes daily. The engineering required to create safe, sustainable access to such an elevated location represents problem-solving capabilities that demand serious reconsideration of prehistoric American technical knowledge. The integration of natural and artificial features throughout these cliff cities reveals sophisticated understanding of environmental engineering. Builders identified and enhanced natural water seepage points, created ventilation systems that regulate temperature and humidity, and designed drainage networks that prevent erosion damage. This level of environmental integration suggests accumulated knowledge of local ecology and climate patterns that required centuries of systematic observation and experimentation. Traveling west into Arizona's Verde Valley, we encounter Montezuma Castle's sister site, a construction achievement that forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the true sophistication of prehistoric American engineering. This 5-story limestone fortress, built into a natural alcove 90 feet above Beaver Creek, represents architectural and engineering capabilities that mainstream timelines insist didn't exist in 13th century America. The structural challenges overcome here should have been impossible using available technology. Building stable multi-story masonry construction in a natural cave requires solving complex problems of foundation engineering, weight distribution, and material integration. The builders had to calculate load-bearing capacities for irregular limestone surfaces, design drainage systems to prevent water damage, and create ventilation networks that would maintain livable conditions in sealed stone chambers. The construction logistics present equally puzzling challenges. Every stone block, every wooden beam, every basket of clay mortar had to be transported up nearly vertical cliff faces using only rope technology and human strength. The precision of the finished masonry suggests skilled craftsmen working under controlled conditions with standardized materials and consistent quality control. This level of construction management requires organizational systems that supposedly didn't develop until much later periods. The defensive engineering reveals military architectural knowledge that challenges our understanding of prehistoric warfare. The structure could only be accessed through removable wooden ladders, creating a defensive system where each floor functioned as an independent fortress. Windows and doorways were positioned to provide overlapping fields of observation while maintaining structural integrity. This integration of military strategy with architectural design suggests warfare conducted according to sophisticated tactical principles. But perhaps most intriguing are the astronomical alignments built into the structure's orientation. Specific openings frame sunrise positions during solstices and equinoxes, while internal chambers capture precise light patterns that mark seasonal transitions. The mathematical precision required to achieve these alignments while working within the constraints of natural cliff formations represents advanced knowledge of both astronomy and engineering that wasn't supposed to exist in prehistoric America. Moving deeper into the southwest, we encounter perhaps the most enigmatic achievement in our catalogue of impossible prehistoric structures. In the remote canyons of Utah and Colorado, the ancestral Puebloan people created Hovenweep, a complex of stone towers that rise from canyon rims like ancient skyscrapers. These structures present engineering challenges that should have been insurmountable using 13th century technology, yet they stand as testament to capabilities that force us to reconsider everything we think we know about prehistoric American achievement. Square Tower itself defies conventional understanding of stone construction. Rising 3 stories from a precarious perch atop a massive boulder, this structure required solving engineering problems that wouldn't be formally addressed until the development of modern structural mechanics. The builders had to calculate weight distribution across an irregular foundation, design flexible joints that would accommodate settlement and thermal expansion, and create a structure stable enough to survive centuries of weathering and seismic activity. The network of interconnected towers across the Hovenweep landscape reveals systematic planning that operated on a regional scale. Each structure was positioned to maintain visual contact with others, creating a communication system capable of relaying signals across vast distances. The mathematical precision of these sightlines suggests surveying capabilities and geometric knowledge that required sophisticated understanding of trigonometry and landscape measurement techniques. The astronomical functions integrated into these towers push this achievement into truly remarkable territory. Specific windows and doorways were positioned to frame celestial events with mathematical precision. Some structures contain internal chambers designed to capture precise shafts of sunlight during solstices, creating three-dimensional calendars carved in stone. This marriage of architectural engineering with advanced astronomy represents intellectual achievement that challenges every assumption about 13th century American capabilities. The construction methods revealed through archaeological analysis demonstrate masonry techniques that wouldn't be seen again in the American Southwest for centuries. Core and veneer wall construction, sophisticated mortar formulations, and the integration of natural rock formations into structural designs all point to accumulated building traditions that required generations to develop. Yet these techniques appeared suddenly in the archaeological record, with no apparent developmental phase. But here's where the story takes a truly puzzling turn. Analysis of the abandonment patterns at these sites reveals something that shouldn't have been possible according to conventional understanding of prehistoric American societies. These structures weren't destroyed by warfare, natural disaster, or gradual decay. They were systematically emptied and sealed by their inhabitants in what appears to have been coordinated, large-scale population movements. The evidence suggests these relocations were planned and executed with precision that required sophisticated organizational capabilities. Valuable items were carefully removed and transported. Ceremonial spaces were ritually closed. Architectural features were deliberately sealed to preserve them for possible future use. This level of social coordination implies political and religious institutions capable of organizing thousands of people across vast geographical areas. The timeline of these achievements creates a pattern that demands serious reconsideration of prehistoric American development. Advanced astronomical knowledge, sophisticated engineering techniques, continent-spanning trade networks, and complex social organization, all appearing simultaneously in the archaeological record at periods when such capabilities weren't supposed to exist according to conventional cultural evolution models. What we're witnessing isn't gradual technological development progressing from simple to complex over extended periods. We're seeing fully realized capabilities appearing suddenly and disappearing just as mysteriously, leaving behind evidence of intellectual and technical achievements that rival the greatest accomplishments of acknowledged ancient civilizations. The implications extend far beyond archaeological curiosity. These sites represent evidence of educational systems capable of preserving and transmitting complex technical knowledge across generations. They indicate scientific traditions that produced accurate astronomical observations and mathematical calculations. They demonstrate organizational capabilities that could coordinate massive construction projects while maintaining sophisticated trade networks spanning entire continents. Most significantly, they prove that the intellectual capabilities of prehistoric American civilizations were operating at levels that mainstream archaeology has systematically underestimated or ignored. The knowledge required to achieve these feats represents accumulated wisdom that developed over extended periods by cultures that possessed institutions, traditions, and capabilities that have been deliberately marginalized by conventional historical interpretation. As we prepare to examine our final revelations, the evidence becomes overwhelming. Each site we've explored reveals capabilities that push against every boundary of what should have been possible according to accepted timelines. The pattern is consistent across thousands of years and vast geographical distances. Advanced knowledge, sophisticated techniques, and monumental achievements appearing throughout prehistoric America at scales that demand fundamental reconsideration of human development in the Americas. The question is no longer whether these capabilities existed. The evidence is undeniable. The question is why this evidence has been systematically minimized, explained away, or ignored by institutions that control our understanding of American prehistory. What we're about to discover in our final sites will push these boundaries even further, revealing achievements that challenge not just archaeological timelines, but our fundamental assumptions about the development of human civilization itself. Our journey across prehistoric America now takes us to one of the most spectacular and mysterious sites in the entire Southwest. Hidden within the red sandstone canyons of northeastern Arizona lies Canyon de Chelly, where ancient architects created structures that seem to defy the very laws of physics. Here, carved into sheer cliff faces hundreds of feet above the desert floor, we find architectural achievements that challenge everything mainstream archaeology tells us about 13th century American capabilities. White House ruins clings to the canyon wall like something from a fevered dream. Two separate dwelling complexes, one perched 50 feet above the other on natural ledges carved from living rock, connected by hand-carved footholds that would challenge modern rock climbers. The precision of the masonry work, the integration with natural cliff formations, and the engineering solutions required to build stable structures on irregular rock surfaces represent technical knowledge that supposedly didn't exist in prehistoric America. But here's what makes your brain hurt. The lower section contains over a dozen rooms built directly on the canyon floor, while the upper complex dangles from the cliff face like an ancient apartment building suspended in space. The structural calculations required to ensure these buildings wouldn't simply tumble into the canyon below represent engineering knowledge that took European architects centuries to develop. Yet here we see it fully realized in 13th century America. The construction logistics alone should have been impossible. Every stone block, every wooden beam, every basket of mortar had to be carried up nearly vertical cliff faces using only rope and human determination. The finished structures show evidence of sophisticated construction management, including standardized materials, quality control, and coordinated work sequences that required organizational capabilities operating at near-industrial scales. The astronomical alignments integrated into these cliff dwellings reveal knowledge that pushes into truly mind-bending territory. Specific rooms were positioned to capture sunlight during particular celestial events, creating shadow calendars that could track seasonal transitions with mathematical precision. The calculations required to achieve these alignments while working within the constraints of irregular cliff formations represent advanced understanding of both astronomy and three-dimensional geometry. What's equally puzzling is the abandonment pattern. These structures weren't destroyed by warfare or natural disaster. They were systematically emptied by their inhabitants, who apparently relocated in organized fashion, leaving behind sealed chambers and carefully preserved architectural features. This suggests social organization, capable of coordinating large-scale population movements, while maintaining cultural continuity across geographical transitions. Moving northward into the high desert plateaus of Utah, we encounter structures that force us to confront the most uncomfortable questions about prehistoric American capabilities. The stone towers of Hovenweep rise from canyon rims like ancient skyscrapers, their impossible silhouettes challenging every assumption about what 13th century builders could achieve using stone tools and human labor. These aren't simple defensive structures thrown together in response to immediate threats. The engineering sophistication displayed here represents accumulated knowledge that should have taken centuries to develop. Multi-story masonry construction balanced on irregular boulder foundations, astronomical observation chambers integrated into defensive architecture, and communication networks spanning multiple canyon systems all point to technical capabilities that mainstream timelines insist didn't exist. The mathematical precision of the sightlines between towers reveals surveying knowledge that wouldn't be formally developed in Europe for centuries. Each structure was positioned to maintain visual contact with others across vast distances, creating an integrated communication system that could relay signals throughout the entire region. The geometric calculations required to achieve these alignments across rugged terrain represent understanding of trigonometry and landscape measurement that challenges every assumption about prehistoric American mathematical knowledge. But perhaps most remarkable are the astronomical functions built into these towers. Internal chambers were designed to capture precise shafts of sunlight during solstices and equinoxes, creating three-dimensional calendars carved in stone. Windows and doorways frame specific celestial events with accuracy that rivals modern astronomical instruments. This integration of advanced astronomy with practical architecture represents intellectual achievement that shouldn't have been possible according to conventional understanding of 13th century capabilities. The construction methods revealed through archaeological analysis demonstrate masonry techniques that disappeared from the archaeological record for centuries after these sites were abandoned. Sophisticated mortar formulations, core and veneer wall construction, and the integration of natural rock formations into structural designs all point to building traditions that required generations of accumulated expertise to perfect. Our final destination takes us to perhaps the most enigmatic achievement in our catalogue of impossible prehistoric structures. Deep in the wilderness of northern New Mexico, the cliff cities of Bandelier represent architectural accomplishments that defy every conventional understanding of what should have been possible using 13th century technology. Here, ancient builders didn't just construct buildings, they reshaped entire cliff faces, creating vertical cities that housed hundreds of families in multi-story complexes carved directly from living rock. The scale of modification is breathtaking. Volcanic cliffs were systematically carved and shaped to create artificial caverns with precisely calculated dimensions, integrated drainage systems, and structural reinforcements that have survived 7 centuries of weathering. These 10 megalithic achievements scattered across America tell a story that mainstream archaeology refuses to acknowledge. From the mathematical precision of Poverty Point to the astronomical sophistication of Chaco Canyon, we've seen evidence of advanced civilizations operating thousands of years before they were supposed to exist. The engineering knowledge, organizational capabilities, and scientific understanding required to create these monuments represents intellectual achievements that challenge our most fundamental assumptions about prehistoric American development. The question isn't whether these capabilities existed. The evidence stands before us in stone and earth. The question is why this truth has been systematically buried beneath convenient explanations and comfortable timelines. America's past is far older and far more sophisticated than we've been told.